It sort of shows what the Biden administration is doing when it comes to our southern border and illegal immigrants in this country. 2 million came into the country last year under Biden's watch, and he's breaking records month after month in terms of our southern border. The mainstream press won't cover it. And it came out in October, thanks to the New York Post, that the Biden administration, putting a bunch of illegal immigrants on charter flights down from, I think it's Texas, Fort Bliss, Texas, if I'm not mistaken, and putting them all over the country in the dead of night, including practically my backyard here, Westchester County Airport. And they got caught. And now what's happened just this week is 51 minutes of footage was obtained under a Freedom of Information Act request by former Westchester County Executive Rob Astorino. This is a Republican who's running for governor in 2020. So he gets his hands on the footage. And I just want to play it because what you're going to hear is a conversation between Sergeant Michael Hamborski, who's expressing his frustration. Now I'm quoting from a Miranda Devine piece in the Post, that local police have been giving no information about these flights arriving after curfew at the airport in breach of security protocols. And a federal contractor who's kind of saying, man, I'm not in charge here. I'm just doing what I was told to do. So watch this and listen.
I want to be somewhere where the spotlight. Yeah. You want to try to keep it as down low as possible. A lot of this is just.
No, I get it. I just, like I said,
stuff that we don't tell people because what we don't want to do is attract attention. We don't want the media.
Yeah.
Like we don't even know where we're going when they tell us.
I get the whole secrecy and all this, but this is even about my thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And why? You know why?
You know why?
Yeah, I know, but why? Yeah.
That's why. Come on.
No, but what's the big secret? Everybody knows it's happening.
You know why? Because if it gets out, the government's betraying the American people.
If this gets out, the government is betraying the American people, says the contractor to the police officer on there. They know. They know. These flights were occurring nightly from August until they were busted by the Post in October. And the guys on board are saying, we don't even know. The bus driver said to I think it was the cop, we don't even know where we're taking them. But they have these shepherds, these chaperones. They get on the bus and tell us when they're on. This is insane, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's also, on one hand, I want to say it's amazing. On the other hand, I'm not amazed at all because I know that our government has no respect for our national sovereignty at all. And there's a certain futility that I feel when I listen to footage like that, because on one hand, they're caught red-handed. You have them saying on the footage, yeah, we're betraying the American people. But then I also know that nothing will come of it. No one's going to be held accountable. There's no accountability whatsoever. This is something that they can do. And just, it's like when virus labs, leak viruses that kill 5 million people, and it's just, well, they did it and nothing happens. There's no accountability. And something similar here. So there's also a kind of futility to it. I don't know. It's we as the American people. What are we supposed to do now with this information? I suppose that's something to keep in mind when we get to the midterm elections. That's one thing that we can do, but there's still that kind of futility to it.
But it's infuriating, isn't it? It's like Mr. Unity and Transparency, who is going to have a different kind of presidency, and you hear an exchange on the tape between these guys. The officer says, well, the contractor says he says we're not allowed to have our picture taken when we get on base. The guy's sort of handling the immigrants, and the cop says, uneffing believable. Who's by that? DHS? And the guy says, yeah, and the U.S. Army. You're on a federal installation, but DHS wants everything on the down low. And then the sergeant asks another contractor, why do you come to a small airport like this one, Westchester? And the response is, you don't want to be somewhere the spotlight is. You want to try and be as down low as possible. A lot of this is just down low stuff that we don't tell people because what we don't want to do is attract attention. We don't want the media. Like, we don't even know where we're going when they tell us. And goes on to, I mean, this is, they're so determined to get these illegal immigrants into American communities with impunity. it suggests they really are up to something nefarious, like trying to change the voter rolls or who knows what else. But there is absolutely zero chance any of these people is going to go back for an asylum hearing or any other sort of protocol at the southern border, which would be handling them.
Right. And it is infuriating. I think it's important for us to still, you can kind of become numb to it after a while, which I guess is what I was saying before, that it's, you're so used to being betrayed by the government, by the Biden administration, that after a while you get kind of numb to it. But we should be outraged by this. This is the kind of thing that should provoke outrage. And is it a coincidence that, well, let's just think about it. Let's try to connect the dots. You have the Biden administration literally flying illegal immigrants in the dead of night, under the cover of night and darkness, into American neighborhoods. And at the same time, they're launching this full-on assault against voter ID and claiming that it's the worst assault on American democracy, voter ID is, in history. So the fact that these two things are happening at the same time, bringing in the illegal immigrants, also coming out strong against voter ID. If you're in favor of voter ID, then you're as bad as the segregationists and all the rest of it. I don't think that's a coincidence at all. Call me a conspiracy theorist.
And here in New York City, they're just pushing now so that unlawful immigrants can vote, that they can vote in the local elections. Great. I mean, they're literally flying them in and then busing them in. I mean, they're coming into New York State, and New York City's changing the rules so that they can vote. I mean, this is, look, I know people make fun of sort of the hard right when it comes to its immigration conspiracy theories. This is no conspiracy theory. You can look at it with your very eyes. And there's been no explanation, and there's been no accountability. And all we continue to have is more and more open borders and complaints when they continue to lose court hearings trying to undo the Trump immigration protocols, like remain in Mexico. Like, okay, you want to come in here, you want asylum, you can wait in this Mexico city until that's resolved. You don't get to sit in the United States where we know you're going to roam and you're never going to show up for your hearings and de facto become a part of this country because nobody's going to pursue it after this point. So the only reason Remain in Mexico has been put back in place is because Biden lost in the courts, but he wants to undo it. He wants to undo all these things. And Matt, this is what people care about. When you look at the polls, there was a recent poll saying they put the American people put immigration number one. Number one is their most important concern. It's always at least in the top three: inflation, economy, this, COVID's moving down and down. This is the kind of thing that can drive elections. And I just wonder whether they're cognizant of that. Just the politicians in them should say, yo, this isn't a good idea.
Well, they're cognizant enough to say they don't want the media to find out about it. Although even there, it's like they don't actually, you don't need to worry about the media because most of the media isn't going to talk about this anyway. It's very particular media outlets and people in the media that would talk about it. But it's a conspiracy. It is a conspiracy, but it's not a theory. We know that it's happening. As you point out, there's an open effort to make it possible for illegal immigrants to vote. So it's really simple. It is a conspiracy, but it's very simple. You bring them in and then they can vote and they're going to vote for you. It's a really simple kind of connection. And, the American people do care about the sovereignty of their country. Imagine that, because we live here and we care about the United States continuing to exist in any kind of discernible way. Because if you open the borders and you get rid of them, then what even is the United States anymore? They care about that. And I would dare say that most Americans care much more about the sovereignty of their own country and the borders of their own country than the sovereignty and the borders of countries 6,000 miles away. So I can't help but, compare this to, say, all of the fretting over Ukraine. And we're being told by some people in the government that, we need to be very concerned about this and we need to help Ukrainians protect their border and all that sort of thing. Well, what about ours? I mean, what about protecting the sovereignty of this country that we live in? I think that's what most people in this country care about.